Well, Harry Potter star Daniel Radcliffe slams JK Rowling again over her stance on women's rights. Does he have a point, or is it the ultimate case of biting the hand that fed him his millions? Donald Trump sets out his vision for a second term in a major cover story interview with Time magazine. Critics say it's chilling. Supporters say they've got a dangerous new variant of Trump derangement syndrome. So which is right? Does shooting a dog show political toughness, or is it just political suicide? And there's a new trans-inclusive LGBTQ 1A2SL plus flag. We'll break that all down as a public service. Well, joining me to debate all this is the Piers back, commentator Brandon Tatum of the Officer Tatum YouTube channel, Blaire White, host of the Blaire White Project podcast, and in the studio, Uncensored contributor Esther Krakue, and the sometime comedian James Barr, very famous sometime comedian after last week's...
I am the #1 Israel-Palestine correspondent in the UK.
Yeah, I think you've always had that reputation here as a sharp political commentator.
Please read my book.
Anyway, it's good to have you all. Let's start then with the NHS, the National Health Service here in this country, leading the way, many Americans think, in perhaps re-establishing some basic biological facts in the gender wars. And, of course, obviously also going further and banning puberty blockers, which America has yet to do. So let me ask you, first of all, James, the NHS is to declare sex a biological reality as part of its new constitution. The guidance will mean that trans men should not be housed on single-sex male wards. Transgender people whose gender identity differs from their biological sex may be provided single rooms where appropriate. Patients will have the right to request a person of the same biological sex delivers any intimate care. Phrases like chest feeding will be banned. And so on, all with the backdrop of Daniel Radcliffe saying that JK Rowling, who's been campaigning for all this, is disgusting and awful, and he wishes, presumably, he'd never taken her grubby millions. Where do you sit with this? To me, this is not only a victory for common sense, but it's also going to help trans people in the long run. Because a lot of these debates, I think, have been very damaging to the transgender attempt to get to proper fairness and equality, because it has made transgender people the subject of mockery, and I think that's been very damaging. So that's where I sit with this. Where do you sit?
I think that's a confusing take, to be honest. I'm not entirely sure I understand that. I probably need you to unpack it another time. I think it's bullshit. I mean, you know how difficult it was for your mum to get a bed in hospital. You told that story recently, and it was devastating. And they're now saying they're going to separate people. They're going to check what's going on underneath their clothing. Like, this is just insane. They don't have enough resources as it is. It's a completely under-resourced institution, and the people that work for it are amazing, but they need more support, as do trans people, and to vilify trans people is just disgusting.
You've literally said nothing there. That was a giant
Esther.
nothing burger.
Thank you.
It said where appropriate, which means if the resources are there, then they can have their own rooms. At the end of the day, there's no reason for a trans woman to be on a maternity ward. And I hate to break it to you, but you're not a woman. You have no idea how it feels to have your legs open, being in that intimate environment, trying to give birth. There is no space for someone who identifies as something else other than their gender to be
Why
there.
would a trans woman be giving birth on a maternity ward?
You tell me, because apparently they can do that.
That's a crazy thing
apparently
to
they
ask.
can do that.
That's a crazy thing to suggest.
Here's the reality.
Let me bring in Blaire.
Reality. We're coming to a point, and speaking as a trans woman on the panel here, we're getting to a point in society where we have to start to cope with the fact that there have been a lot of excesses with the trans movement. It's done a lot of things incorrectly. It has put people off. It's hurt women. It's hurt children. And I think recalibrating is the only way to get to a point where things are actually, we don't have to worry about women in prisons and in hospital situations. These are things that we've solved long ago. And for whatever reason, it's bubbling back up because of politics. But at the end of the day, when it comes to prisons specifically, biological men should not be in women's prisons. We have enough incidents here in the U.S. of women getting pregnant, getting raped, because at the end of the day, in a lot of states in the U.S., you don't even have to have reassignment surgery to be in a women's prison. It's just on your safe, though.
Well, Blaire, in Scotland...
And I think Piers is absolutely correct when he says that not only does this damage women and children, it's also come and it's rebounded and it's damaged trans people. And it's made people look at the community like, what in the world is going on?
Yeah, and on that point about the prisons, I mean, the Scottish National Party, which is the ruling party in Scotland, the leader's just resigned, closely following on the heels of the previous leader. And it all goes back, actually, to when the previous leader, Nicola Sturgeon, insisted on putting a male rapist into a female prison. And at that point, most Scottish people rose up and went, this is completely insane. Why would you put somebody who's in a male prison, having committed crimes of rape as a biological male, into a women's prison where he can attack other women? I mean, it was mind-bogglingly insane.
It is insane, and it's because the fear of being called transphobic, even the state fears it, which is really scary.
Well,
and at the end of the day, it's like...
But let me ask James. Blaire, just hang on one sec. James, you literally, you come in, week out, and you talk for trans people, and you tell them how they should all be thinking about this.
No, that's
You've
not
literally,
true.
well, hang on, you've just literally heard a trans woman, identifying as a trans woman, explain to you why you're wrong. Are you going to now tell her, as a gay man, are you now going to tell her how she should be feeling?
I just wanted to pick up on the point you said where, people in politics are afraid to be transphobic. That is absolutely not the case in this country, where our Prime Minister will happily make transphobic jokes and get away with it.
Well, it's shifting now. But we're leaving an era where it was absolutely, a thing that was happening where you couldn't speak against the movement. You couldn't be seen as on the wrong side of history. Now it's shifting because people are becoming aware of these excesses that we're talking about.
But is that okay
and there's this weird
for a Prime Minister
dissonance.
to make those kind of jokes? Is that okay?
There is no room.
I don't really care about jokes. I don't really care about jokes. And the idea that jokes...
I'm sorry.
And by the way, just to be clear, the joke the Prime Minister made was in reference to the fact that the Labour leader is incapable of saying what a woman is, right? And believes that 99% of women don't have a penis. Okay, let's not get into graphic.
And if we want to get very literal and slightly personal, that sort of thing affects me exactly 0%. But men, trans women, and biological males being in women's prisons is actually going on a realistic level going to affect me more because it makes me look like one of these people. So if I had to choose between which one I want to stop happening, I really don't care about jokes. And because I'm a normal person, I care more about women's safety.
And again, I come to you, James. I will come to you, Officer Tatum. You're waiting very patiently. But James, again, week in, week out, you are enraged by all this. You think it's terrible that trans people should be able to do all these things. They should be able to compete against biological women at sport. They should be able to put in women's prisons. They should be able to do the blah, blah, blah.
I've never spoken on women's prisons, actually.
So you don't think they should be?
That's a misquote.
So
I think...
Well, hang on, just to be clear. Hang on, okay. Hang on, you put me up.
Yeah.
So let me give you the chance to clarify. Do you think trans people should be put into women's prisons?
I think that they should be safe, as should all prisoners.
Hang on, that wasn't the question.
That's my answer, Piers. I'm not going to get dragged into it. I'm not getting dragged into it.
You dragged yourself into it.
I don't understand the prison
You denied ever saying it.
But I'm not
as
has been pointed out, I'm not a trans woman.
Hang on.
I'm not a trans man.
Oh, now you're backing off because there's a trans woman
I have always said that. I have always said that, but so often I'm thrown into this panel without a trans person being here, and I have to be the... So thank God you're here to be able to talk about it.
Let me just ask, hang on one second, everyone. Hang on one second. I just want to ask Joe, because you did pick me up on this. You stopped me to pick me up on it. So you've made it an issue. Just for the record.
You said that I made a comment on it, and
just for the record, should trans women be allowed to be put into women's prisons? Yes or no?
Honestly, I have no understanding on the issue, and I don't want to make a comment.
Fantastic.
But I won't be told that I have an opinion.
And yet you think that trans women athletes should be allowed to compete against biological women?
Yes, I do think that, yeah.
And you see no inconsistency in these positions?
I don't really know, because I haven't made a comment on the prison.
All right, let me bring it up as a
Because he's scared to be...
I'm not scared.
He's scared to be shamed.
I
the
think...
same thing that Blaire said. Let me talk. The same thing that Blaire was saying, that people are afraid to be called transphobic and all this stuff. And so are you.
I'm not
afraid. You won't be
afraid.
honest and tell the truth about the fact that it's absolutely mind-blowingly ridiculous to think that a man with a penis that's impersonating a woman or think he's a woman can be in a women's prison. That's insane.
But this is where the disagreement
You seem to think it's no disagreement, brother. The man has a penis.
It's
and he's
a woman.
in a cell with a woman.
She's a woman.
With a penis.
No.
A woman with a penis.
I believe a trans woman
This
is
is
a
a
woman.
problem with society. This is a problem with society.
Don't all talk over each other.
Let me finish.
Yeah, let me
This
finish.
is the problem with society. We need to be logical, reasonable, and operate in facts.
And
it is a
respectful.
man that identify as a woman. It's not a woman. It's very simple. Why can't we get that correct?
Well, why can't we ask? Let's ask Blaire.
I don't know how
Blaire,
things...
as the only trans person on this panel, What do you feel about what Officer Tatum just said there?
I 100% agree. And I don't know exactly what goes on overseas in prisons. I'm an American, but what I do know here is just about once a month, there's some kind of story about a female inmate in a federal prison becoming pregnant, being raped, because at the end of the day, these are biological males with the capability to impregnate women, to rape women. And the idea that trans safety should always trump women's safety, I just don't understand that. And the other problem with people like this is they never offer any solutions. So for me, there are such things as LGBT wards in certain prisons in America. And for me, that's a very easy solution to this problem. Put trans people in LGBT wards. That makes the trans person safe, and it also keeps women safe.
Yeah, I completely agree with that solution. I think my issue with this conversation is that it feels like a smokescreen for transphobia, and a lot of the time people do hide behind it.
But I don't think anybody here is transphobic.
There are a lot of women, biological women, as you would say, in women's prison that are also raping women, and no one is talking about that. No one's discussing that. Everyone just talks about the 1% of trans people that live in this country that probably aren't going to prison.
All right, let me bring it.
And it isn't.
As you made clear, James, you're not prepared to pass comment on this, and we know why. Because you don't want to say what is actually the obvious reality, which is it's insane, because you fear that you will be accused of being transphobic, which is, of course, very ironic, because that is the word that is used about all of us whenever we try and stand up for women's rights.
I do understand why you're saying that, but by coming on here and supporting trans people in the way I do, I'm constantly called
I support trans people.
By your fans.
But you know what?
Is that not also scary? It's very brave of me to have this opinion.
As I said to you, and as I've been consistent in print and
you've ignored what I said.
I have always defended trans people's rights to fairness and equality. I do want to bring back, Esther, just on this one point about Daniel Radcliffe, who told The Atlantic, one of the big media organisations in America, it makes me really sad, ultimately, because I do look at the person that I met, the times that we met, the books that she wrote, and the world that she created, and all of that, to me, is so deeply empathetic. This is after he's attacked JK Rowling again for her stance on defending women's rights. These Harry Potter stars are a bunch of deluded, ill-informed, spoiled brats. Yeah. The truth is, this whole debate now in this country has come full square behind JK Rowling, who has never been transphobic. I don't even like JK Rowling. She's abused me for years, right, on Twitter, called me all sorts of terrible names. She once said it was absolutely delicious to see me be told to fuck off on American TV. So I have no truck with her whatsoever. However, on this, she has been brave and correct. And now the woke worm has turned and come round to JK Rowling. And Esther, people like Daniel Radcliffe, spoilt little brats who don't know what they're talking about. They've caused more damage than she has ever done.
I find the lack of self-awareness actually quite baffling. So just removing JK Rowling from this, if they suddenly don't like her as a person, fine. But she's speaking on behalf of women that are scared of having their spaces removed. She was a victim of domestic violence, and she's saying it is detrimental to women to remove their safe spaces. It is detrimental to women to tell them that they must compete with biological men who somehow feel entitled to their spaces. How can they not see past that? It's more than just the fact that JK Rowling gave them a career and gave them a wonderful start and all of that. Think of the women that she's speaking on behalf of. So you're willing to put all of those women's lives at risk to be able to virtue signal to what all 10 trans people.
And by the way, if they're that outraged by how evil JK Rowling is, hand back all the money you've made from JK Rowling. Every dollar of the tens of millions you've all raked in because you were very, very happy to make money from her, and now you want to trash her in public. It's the worst kind of disloyalty. Just want to ask you, James, because you are
very interesting.
Sorry, Blaire,
I think it's really interesting. I think it's interesting how JK Rowling has become this figurehead for, as obviously her detractors would say, transphobia or hatred or whatever. And I think it's really indicative of the fact that the trans community has become so radioactive and such a repellent to common sense and reason that the person who made Dumbledore gay retroactively, that made Hermione Granger black retroactively, it takes a lot to get that person to be like, but you know what, the trans people are doing a bit much here. I think that should show everyone it's time to recalibrate and get some common sense.
Yes.
And it's not a bad thing. Separate but not equal is not always a bad thing.
Yeah.
I don't feel victimized in any way that I'm not in every single woman's space, or I have my own space, I do my own thing, and that's how trans people should be.
God, it's so refreshing to hear a trans person publicly say this, because a lot of trans people I know are too scared to get involved in this. They don't want to have a fuss. They don't want to have all this stuff.
Yeah.
They don't want to be mocked.
Well,
It'll be
because-
laughed at, ridiculed because of trans activists or allies who think they're being allies to the trans community and actually having the complete opposite effect. I want to ask you, Joe, because you're the only person who identifies as gay on this panel. I think that's right. Esther?
Right, are you about to come out? Piers?
Not yet. I've always found
look.
you a very handsome and attractive
Thank
young
you.
man.
I nearly said you too, but I had to stop myself because I don't lie.
Now, there's a new Pride flag. I tried to read out all the initials that go with Pride these days. I can't keep up with it. More and more people seem to get added to it. But it's a weird picture of this Pride flag. Let's take a look. It looks like the old test card on television.
Showing your age.
When everything froze.
It looks like
James,
a
what am I looking at
pig
here? It's a psychedelic vomit mess, isn't it? What is it?
It's ugly.
I love that it's got an umbrella, like representation for the rain in this country. Honestly, I don't really get it. Like, I don't understand why we need to keep changing it. But what I do understand
why
is that
do
it
they
doesn't
keep
matter.
changing it?
But it's fine. You know, that's the point with a flag. Like, we can change it. We're not stuck in our ways like straight people. We're not going to get upset by
But
the England
should
flag
we
being
change it?
redesigned. Well, it can if it wants to. It's changed a lot over the years, and people
But
continue
should
to.
we?
Say again, Blair?
There shouldn't even be. There shouldn't even be a
change
flag.
it, but should we?
Well,
Sometimes
but why
things
not?
are okay
I mean,
to flag
we
up.
didn't invent
There
the
shouldn't be
rainbow.
a
God
flag.
invented the
If
rainbow. We use that as a
There
symbol
shouldn't be a flag.
to let. We use
should
that as
not
a
be a
symbol to
flag.
let people know that
well,
they were
actually, you raise a good
We
point
don't.
there.
We don't.
Officer
We don't need
Tatum.
to.
Yeah,
We
go
don't
on.
need to do that. I think, like, if
It
you're
is
an
weird,
American, you're all encompassed under the American flag. We're all Americans, whether you're gay, straight, blind, you can see, crippled. It doesn't matter. We're all Americans, and we should be accepting of one another. We don't have to like one another. We don't have to like what each other does, but we should be accepting. And that's the way that normal people believe. It's the trans and the LGBTQ AARP.
So wait,
that
are you saying that
hateful
when
and
you go
divisive.
past like a Ford factory and they've got like a big Ford flag outside or a Chrysler flag, or are you not allowed those flags because those flags don't represent
So
the
you're
company?
saying, you're saying that.
Well, you're saying that I can't have a pride flag because
you actually
because
cleared
the
it up.
American
You
flag
guys
does the job. So
the
does that mean all
LGBTQ
flags
is
are
a
banned?
business. No. What you're saying is that the LGBTQ is a business. Is that
no,
what
I'm
you're
not.
saying?
I'm
You
using
guys are
a
representing
crazy
an
analogy to
agenda.
try and understand what you're
No,
saying about
you
how
don't need a
my
flag.
identity
You don't
as a
need-
gay man
Let me-
is not allowed because
It's
I'm
different.
also
Because
British.
it never ends, brother. It never ends.
But why
You
does
guys
it
are gonna
matter
have
to you? It's only you
400,000
that can't.
colors
Look, I know you
and
guys are all
twists and
really
turns.
jealous that you don't have a flag, and so I know you're
I
triggered.
have the American
Yes,
flag.
I know that you're triggered by
It's
colour.
not the
I do.
American
finally
flag,
designed
baby. No,
you
no,
Thank
no,
you.
no,
a
no.
flag
I know
with
this
your
is
face on it
overseas.
I actually-
that you can
no.
proudly wave
Thank you.
wherever you want. And
Thank you.
guys,
I'll have that.
send
You
one as well.
can't even
I know.
describe.
You're very
You can't even
welcome.
describe
Thank you
what
very
the
much.
flag
That's your
means.
straight
I actually,
can't
what
even
I want,
describe
I
what
want
the
a
flag
straight, I
means.
want a straight flag that I
Esther,
can
do
wave
you want one
proudly
as
as
well?
a straight
I'm
man.
all right.
I've got a
Thanks.
straight flag for
I'm
you.
fine.
Flag.
There you go.
There we go.
Oh no.
There we go.
There you go. Do you feel like you're part of it now? Do you feel happy?
Here's what I feel is the reason they keep changing the pride flag is the definition of what it is to be LGBT has now been increased to so many ludicrous numbers of digits, numbers, and letters. Nobody knows what it means. It has lost
Well, then
all
why are you getting
meaning.
so upset
Nobody
about
does.
it?
It used to be just lesbian
Nobody
and gay.
does.
We get
And-
it. Okay, well, I'm happy. Be proud. I'm proud of you, right? I'm proud of anyone who wants to come out as gay. But here's the thing. We are about to enter Pride Month again.
Yeah, I can't wait.
A whole month of shouting about being gay. Why?
No,
Should be
it's
a
about
nightmare.
shouting about being
Why?
LGBTQIA+.
Nobody tells you you can't. You're gay every
Here's
day
the
of the
thing.
year.
Every
The fact
day,
that
every
they're
day.
Proud
in
and
March.
proud. Why do you need a whole special month? And where's my month?
You don't need a straight
The
month.
fact
Why?
that they're
I want a
going
straight
to
month.
You know
an
why?
I'm now the most
flag.
marginalised member of community.
You know why?
Yeah.
Because the rest of the year is always straight. Every day is straight. We live in a
Any-
society that is straight.
Are you serious?
It's a
That's not
straight
even
jacket
Good, that's-
When
around
was the
us.
that's how
last
you were
time
born.
anybody spoke up
That's how
for
you were born.
middle-aged straight
So
white
good.
guys
Do
like
we
me?
need you? Because you're the patriarchy, Piers.
We
Stop
are.
this stupid
No, we're
argument.
not. We
Stop
are.
this
We
stupid
are actually the
argument.
minority now. We're the minority group. in
Right.
this
Well,
country.
finally.
Let me
finally.
move on. I want to start with you, if I may, Officer Tatum, on this. Is celebrity Trump derangement syndrome back? Kamala Harris, 2 clips. Joe Biden on Howard Stern, Kamala Harris on Drew Barrymore, which is one of the most revolting things I think I've ever watched on global television in the history of television. Let's take a look at Kamala Harris, Vice President of the United
You
States,
watch
on Drew
yourself
Barrymore's
back, so
show.
that says a lot.
I've been thinking that we really all need a tremendous hug in the world right now.
Yeah.
But in our country, We need you to be Mamala of the country.
Let me bring it over to Tatum. Have you ever felt more nauseous watching television than in the Momala moment?
No, I mean, these people are absolutely ridiculous. I want to say another word, but I'm trying to be a good Christian. But, you know, this woman, they're all fake. They're all fake. Kamala Harris is now the first Black vice president. When she was, elected into the Senate, she was the first Indian senator. I mean, these people are absolutely ridiculous. What does Mamala mean? Is that going to help with inflation? Is that going to help bring down prices of groceries? None of that matters. Are they going to secure the border? None of what she's doing on the couch with this other lady, Barrymore. I mean, they got a big old couch. Why are they sitting right in front of each other? These people are absolutely ridiculous and virtue signaling.
Well, it's not Mamala's fault. She didn't ask to be called that, right? She just said that her stepchildren call her that. And then Drew was like...
Well, it's two ignorant folks just saying rubbish. None of that really matters to the American people. I don't know why they're even having a conversation about it.
What I found fascinating, though, is you only see on American...
Honestly,
well, hang on, Blair, I'm going to come to you. In American television, it's very... As you get into election year, actually any year with Trump, you would never see this in reference to Trump or Melania or his vice president or his vice president's wife or any of that.
We don't see...
They are all the devils, right? The only people that you can talk this way about. And it was interesting to me because Howard Stern is one of the people I most admire in world media. And he's one of the greatest interviewers in history, and I love the guy. But I was actually quite surprised about just how softball he was with Joe Biden last week. Let's take a look.
You know, the reason I'm so excited to talk to you was because I wanted to understand the tragedy in your life and how you dealt with it. And you're the kind of leader I love because we're lucky to have you in the Oval Office and serving as the father of the country. Because if you're a good father to your family, which you are, I know you'd be a good father to the country. And I want to thank you for providing a calming influence, an organized administration post-COVID, getting that vaccine out. I remember what the world was like at that point, getting NATO, getting us to feel comfortable, standing up to Putin, the incredible large growth in the jobs, unemployment rate down. I'll give you your greatest hits. The lowest uninsured rate in history. 4 out of 5 Americans are covered for less than $10 a month. Knocking off a few ISIS leaders, cutting the emissions in half. I mean, you've always been an environmentalist.
I mean, it went on and on. Blair, I mean, I was surprised that Howard went quite so far in the sycophancy route with Biden. Were you?
It's not surprising at all. There's this really sick thing that happens in American media where if you are a celebrity or a host or an interview, you have to absolutely worship to the point of insanity any Democrat politician on the show. And every Republican politician, we're talking from, Congress to president to anyone, is literally Hitler. And this is something I've observed my whole life. George Bush was literally Hitler. John McCain was literally Hitler. Mitt Romney. And now Trump. And now they want you to believe that actually, no, this is really literally Hitler this time with Trump. But it's the same thing with the Kamala thing. And Kamala's legacy is particularly sad to me. I mean, it was spoken very plainly by the Biden administration that she was literally picked because she was a Black woman. And I think that that's just actually really embarrassing and hurtful towards Black women and minorities in this country who want to believe that they can prosper on their own merit rather than be handpicked out of something. So I've never understood the love for Miss Kamala.
Well, it just looks so partisan. I mean, I spoke to Charlemagne the God in New York recently, and he's gone completely off the Biden administration because he thinks Kamala's been so useless for African Americans and done absolutely nothing to improve their lives.
Trump was better.
Yeah, I think that's why he's getting a lot more vote now in polls from African Americans. Esther, let me ask you, there's also a Time interview with Trump. They had 2 long interviews with him, done a big cover story in which he lays out what he may do if he comes back to the Oval Office. And it's gone down with the Democrats like a lead balloon, obviously. Amongst many things, he said he used the military to sort out the southern border, National Guard, if necessary, migrant detention camps possible, suggests a 60% plus tariff on Chinese imports, says that Israel, they should be changing their public relations is fared very badly. He says abortion is a states' rights issue. Talking about access to abortion pills, we'll have an opinion on that. I'm not going to explain, I'm not going to say it. I have pretty strong views, but he won't say them. He would absolutely consider pardoning January 6th defenders, even those who've obviously been sent to prison. NATO Europeans need to pay their share, and so on. So a lot there of very Trumpian stuff. What's your take on this Time interview?
I think he said a lot of things that would resonate with people that have basically been left with no other option than to vote for Trump. I think the Democrats' reaction to Trump baffles me because he is their fault. Everything that he is their fault. Because if you offered people an alternative, Trump wouldn't even be someone who is taken seriously. He's not, clothed in glory. But one thing that does concern me about Trump that I think we need to look under the hood a little bit is who's going to be in his administration. Because being a politician isn't just about convincing people to vote for you. It's also about being a leader and being able to bring people under your roof and actually get them to work together to have a coherent administration. He's alienated a lot of people that have been consistently by his side for years. And that's the thing that concerns me. I think a lot of the things that he says is quite common sense, leaving abortion to the states, securing the southern border, all of these things that the Biden administration could just say they want to do, but will not do it because they've been effectively hijacked by lunatics that I genuinely believe hate America. Okay, well, James, you are our resident political expert in America after last week. So your take on Trump derangement syndrome, we're probably about to hear an example of it, but your view of his manifesto if he gets re-elected?
Honestly, I think it's terrifying. That interview is scary in many ways. I think the thing that stood out for me the most was the stuff about tracking pregnant women and allowing states with anti-abortion bans to track women's pregnancies. And it's not surprising from someone that said you can grab women by the pussy to now want to track women's literal pussies. But I do think that's a bit of a problem, and I think it's very scary. And I agree with Esther. It's surprising that he wants to just rule the world and doesn't care about what other people think.
Do you know what's interesting about the whole abortion thing? Because Trump has briefed that his personal view is that he thinks a 15-week term limit would be about where most Americans would sit in terms of abortion law.
Which is where most Europeans sit as well.
Well, it's fascinating. Actually, there are quite a few European countries with much more strict abortion laws than that. There are places in Europe like Poland and Malta and others where it is illegal completely to have an abortion. And so this idea that the United States is a complete outlier, actually by throwing it back to the States, it starts to resemble much more what Europe is like. Where you have the UK, which is a real outlier in terms of lax law, many would argue, 24-week term limit. You have countries like Germany and France, which are around the kind of 10, 12-week thing. So it always strikes when I go to America, and it can become such a heated debate, the abortion debate. I do wonder whether most Americans understand that Europe is not dissimilar. It's not. Anyway, let's move on to, well, I'll tell you one thing I do want to mention, if I could, with Officer Tatum. This South Dakota Republican, Governor Kristi Noem, who is tipped to be Donald Trump's running mate, but has boasted in a book that she's just brought out that she shot and killed a puppy called Cricket, a 14-month-old wire-haired pointer, because she said that the pooch's aggressive personality made her untrainable as a hunting dog. Now, I know a lot of Americans, you love your pets, you particularly love your dogs. I don't think anyone could possibly run for high office having brazenly boasted of murdering a little dog called Cricket. Do you?
Well, let me say this. I think that that's definitely a black eye for her because America do love their dogs. I mean, I remember back when Michael Vick was in a dog killing ring and he went to prison for it. Yeah. And they hated him more than people that kill other people. Yeah. So America don't accept it. I don't know if in that culture of hunting and ranching and stuff that killing a dog is normalized. I don't think she would have bragged about it if it wasn't culturally normal. But I do think it gives her a black eye. I don't know the details enough to care, but I do think that she's not going to be a viable candidate if you have killed a dog in the United States of America. I want to go back to the point, Piers, just 1 second, about the Democrats. Howard Stern completely lied about Joe Biden. Joe Biden doesn't have the numbers that he had claimed that he has. Our economy is going downhill. We're in all kind of wars. We've given hundreds of billions of dollars to Ukraine with no receipts. We don't know how they're spending the money. I mean, all of these things. And Donald Trump has been the president before. So if they think he's going to be the dictator in chief, he's going to be Hitler all over again, he's had an opportunity to do that, and he never did that. He boasted one of the best economies in United States history. He did so much for black people, gave more money to HBCUs. I mean, you go down a list of, that's why he's polling better than Joe Biden. Joe Biden has got the face of the country. He can use as much money as he can to put his name out there. Kamala Harris is a black woman. Ketanji Brown, all these woke things that he's done. Why do you think his ratings are so low? Why do you think Kamala Harris is the worst vice president?
It is amazing that despite all that, his support is cratering with African Americans, and African Americans are gravitating to Trump. But that's because actually African Americans may not want to be patronized and actually do want to be judged on their merit and do want presidents to be judged on their merit. And they feel like the Biden-Harris administration has not improved their lives. In fact, the opposite. I mean, Blaire, final point on Trump.
And if I could just add, since we're giving Trump his flowers, he also made animal cruelty a federal felony, which I was shocked it wasn't before he did that. So you're absolutely correct. The idea that Kristi Noem has any chance of, working with Trump, I don't see that happening.
I don't think it's
okay, but he also did a lot of bad things as well, guys. You're forgetting the Muslim ban. You're forgetting the. I just named one.
Wait, hold on, no, Muslim ban.
COVID-19
No, Muslim ban. Let's talk about the Muslim ban.
I don't need to.
What did he do to ban Muslims?
Whatever. I'm
what
not
did
American,
he do to ban
Muslims? You can't sit here and say
you're making it up.
You're not
because you're giving flowers, which is fine, but there needs to be someone else saying, "Well, hold on a second. He also did this. He did also."
Explain the Muslim ban.
Well, he banned people from certain countries. Just did a blanket ban. Yes, he did.
He did not. Under Barack Obama's administration, they had certain countries that were a threat, which Barack Obama put into place.
Okay,
Donald
so what
Trump
about,
only enacted what Barack Obama did.
What about
you're making it up? You have no idea what you're talking about.
Fact check, entirely correct. Barack Obama identifies 7 Muslim countries that he thought were a threat to America. It was those 7 that Trump, after a massive terror attack, decided there should be a temporary hold on people coming in from the 7 countries that Obama, his predecessor, had identified as a threat to America. So important to get these things in the right context.
Wikipedia.
This is the Trump dipping your pen into
I can read more out if you'd like me to.
Go on, man.
No, read more out. Come on, give me another one. You don't know what you're talking about.
It's like wrestling.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you there, Blair. Men were talking over you.
January 6th?
I said that it's also, in my opinion, up to the left to explain why these countries that just so happens to be, a political threat, a terrorist threat, bipartisanly decided that happen to be Muslim. I mean, I would like to hear an explanation.
88 felony charges right now.
Just because you charge them mean you're guilty.
Impeached twice. Climate change
innocent
reversal,
until proven guilty.
Making Europe less safe. I mean, there was a lot of things that weren't
making Europe less safe.
Listen, hold on. Talking about
the
entire world is in flames right now, and he was the only one to bring peace to the Middle East. That decision alone should seal any Americans. Say, vote.
I just want to say, I want to end because James did mention there were some things he would give credit to Trump for. Can you name one?
Some of the things you said were.
Can you name one?
Okay.
Name one that's
if he brought peace to the Middle East, that's wonderful.
Thank you very much for your contribution to our political debate
more than
in America.
wonderful.
We were going to talk about King Charles. We haven't really got time to do that, other than to say it was great to see him back out yesterday at the Macmillan Cancer Centre. And I was really struck by one thing, and it's this. Everywhere he went, he went upstairs. So he did the normal stuff to start with. He arrived in his Bentley with Queen Camilla. But look at his hand placement with all these patients. And I noticed this in the moving footage in particular, and then you see the stills. He normally shakes everyone's hand with his right hand in a very formal, stiff way. Yesterday, with fellow cancer sufferers, they were all sitting in these chairs having chemotherapy treatment. He ended all their conversations by taking their hand with his left hand in a much more intimate, personal way. And as one of them said afterwards, I really felt that he was connecting with us because he knows exactly what we're going through, emotionally, physically, psychologically. And I watched that and I thought, wow, I remember the pictures of Charles when the Queen was shaking his hand on the train station when he was a kid. The Queen was very formal in the way she interacted with him. He took that formality through into all his public life. You would never see him do this kind of thing. But of course, it was ironic. It was Diana his former, ex-wife who sadly died, she led the way in this kind of much more tactile, touchy-feely interaction with the royal family. And people used to draw a big distinction. And I think after yesterday, that our king, I think through this awful time he's having, has finally developed an empathy and connection with the British people, which I've never seen before. And that was just great to see. So look, we haven't got time to debate it. I'm not sure there's much to debate. Other than to say it's great to see him back. And it's great to see a king who really can connect now with people in this country. 3 million people in Britain have cancer. And they now have a monarch who absolutely knows what they're going through because he's going through it himself. So good to see you back, Your Majesty. And great to see our regal panel in all their splendour. Thank you all very much for a very lively debate today. I appreciate it.